Let's get straight to it. 2015 Honda Civic. This is the 1.8 liter engine. So today I'm going to show you how to change your filter inside of your transmission. And also, in order to do that, we're going to have to replace the gasket and, of course, the fluid. So I'm using the CVT Fluid Synthetic. On the back, it says Honda Genuine CVT Fluid, Multimatic Fluid, HCF2. So this is good for our Civic. So I have the car safely in the air. I have my jack stand in place and my jack as well. So once you're underneath the car, you see what needs to be removed. So we need to access this area here. So we need to remove this whole piece that goes from the left to the right. It's all one piece. This can be removed, but that won't really help us for what we need. So we need to remove the whole thing to get to that transmission over here, because this is all one piece here. This comes off, but it can be removed as one piece. So to get this off in one piece, there's two 10 millimeters to be removed from here. So there's one right there, and on this side there's another one here. And after that, it's just a bunch of clips. So you got a clip there, so you got a clip here to remove, and another one here in the front, and then there's about 3 in the back. So you have one right there in the back, you have one right there, and you have one right there. So that's 3 in the back, two in the front, and then the two 10 millimeters that's here to be removed. And that should be able to get this whole thing completely down. So to get these out, you can use a body panel clip style like this or like that to pry behind it. So you use this and you get to pry behind it, and then you can pull it straight out like that. All right, so with that cover off, now we can clearly see our transmission pan. So we have to drain it first, and then we'll be able to take these bolts off and drop this pan. So all we need to do is get a 3/8 drive in here. So you get a 3/8 ratchet, put the drive in here, and then we'll be able to turn this drain plug out and start to drain the transmission fluid. So of course you're gonna need a pan to catch the fluid in, and we're not gonna reuse this fluid, so we got new fluid for this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this drained out before I take this off. All right, so I was able to break this free, and now it's loose enough for me to turn it by hand. So I got my container in place to catch the spill. So just like an oil change, we're gonna get this loose, and then we're gonna snatch it back really quick so we don't make a real mess. If this stream hits your hand, it's gonna bounce this fluid everywhere. So right now it's loose. We just gotta snatch this off into the side and make sure that the container is set. So we're gonna snatch this off into the side. 1, 2, 3. All right, just like that. So you see it came out, and we have our container down here. So we still made a little bit of mess, nothing too much. And that's why we have this cardboard down here as well, to catch any overflow. Now while this drains out, I'm gonna show you something neat. So this plug has a magnet in it, and it catches any metal shavings that goes down to the bottom. And this looks almost like liquefied shavings. And the good news is there's not much as far as shavings down here. So that's a really good sign for this transmission. We don't have a lot of metal down here, so that's good. All right, so we're just gonna let that continue to drain right there. So now a good rule of thumb for filling this up is, especially if the car is running good and you don't have any shifting or transmission problems before this, a good rule of thumb is to put back in what you took out. So I'm gonna take this and pour this into something where I can measure That way I can know how much to put in. All right, so once the dripping has slowed down to a really slow drip, now we can go ahead and drop the pan. So starting from here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So there's 17 10mm bolts that we need to get down in order to drop this pan. So let's go ahead and get those bolts down now. And also, when you drop this pan, it's to be expected for it to be fluid still down in here. So when you break this free, you want to break it free at an angle. So get your pan and set it wherever the angle you're going to break it. So if you're going to break it free down here first, you want to set your pan down there. So that way when you pull it down, you can just pour all of the fluid down into the drain pan. So let's go ahead and get those bolts out and get this broken free. So to get to this corner one here, because there's a metal lip here, I just had to use a 1/4 inch extension with a 1/4 inch 10mm to get down in there. So while doing this, remember there are 6 short bolts that go on the small side here for the 6 short bolts. So just remember that. All right, so now that we have all of this down, we can go ahead and start to remove this pan. So you can see you have some lips and things here that you can stick a screwdriver or pry bar underneath, and they can help you start to pry this off. So I would start with this lip right here and pry down on this end and put my container down here to make sure I catch any excess fluid. All right, so you can see that we got it down. So the gasket, you can see it's really stuck up there. So the hardest part of this is probably going to be cleaning this gasket surface off right here. So we can take a razor, Scotch-Brite, sandpaper or something to clean this up, and then come back with a rag and some brake clean. Just spray the rag with some brake clean and then come back and wipe up whatever excess is left to clean that surface up. And we also have to do the same thing on this side of the pan. We got to clean up all the gasket surfaces around here. So to make it a little easier to clean around this area, I'm going to remove this filter. We're changing that filter anyway, so let's remove that first. It's 2 10mm bolts to remove this, one here and one there, and then we can just work that filter on down. All right, so the short bolt came out of here, the longer bolt came out of here. So now we can work this on down. All right, so as you can see, a lot of fluid came down with that. So now we have access to clean all of this better. All right, so we have the surfaces cleaned as best as we can, the pan as well. So the gasket is ready to go, but before we do the gasket, we're going to put our filter in. So you can see there's a O-ring inside of here. So remember, there was a long bolt and a short bolt. So the long bolt goes right here and the short bolt goes right here. So what I like to do is, I don't just like using the paper gasket by itself. So I like to use some RTV and put RTV around the surface, put the paper gasket down, then put more RTV on top of the paper gasket, and then we can put the cover up. So I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to layer some RTV down here and show you what that looks like. Again, make sure your surface area is really clean and wiped out. I even wiped out all of the fluid that was inside of the cover. Everything is nice and clean. You can either spray some brake cleaner in a rag and wipe around the edges to make sure you have everything up before putting down your RTV. All right, so you can see what I did. I put RTV all around the outsides. Not too much, just make sure I covered all the surface areas. And now I can go ahead and put this gasket on here. It would be easier if I was able to use two hands. All right, so line these holes up. I'm not gonna press this down too much. I just want to get it on there a little bit. And so these two guide pins you can see are holding this gasket in the right place. And now I'm going to put RTV on top of the other side of the gasket right here. Okay, so now this side of the gasket is also covered with RTV, nice and evenly, nice and balanced. So now we must hurry up and get this up here, because if we take too long, we don't want the RTV to get too hard. So let's get a rag and just clean off the outside of this gasket surface here one last time, and then we'll hurry up and put this cover up here. All right, so now I'm gonna hurry up and get this cover up. So I'm gonna make sure that guide pin goes right in that corner there, and I feel for the other one. All right, so I got both guide pins up there. So now I can go ahead and start getting some of my bolts in here. All right, so I got all of the bolts on here and tightened down, and I did them kind of like cross sequences. I didn't tighten them down side by side. So I went from here across, and I didn't really tighten them down just in one go. I like half tightened them down, and then went around like 3/4 tightened them down, then went around again and tightened them all the way down. And once you get that tightened, then we can go ahead and put our drain plug all the way back in, and we'll get that tightened down as well. All right, so we have the drain tightened, drain plug tightened, and all the bolts tightened. So we're done down here with the bottom of the pan. So we can go ahead and start putting our bottom cover back up here the same way we got it out. So there's two ways to fill this. So there's a plug right here. You can remove that, but then you have to use like a pump with a hose that can go in there, and you have to pump that, and that can just be a lot and messy. But you can also add the fluid from the top the old school way. All right, so let's get ready to fill this. So if we didn't know that this was empty, then it would be hard to fill from the top because we wouldn't know how much we need. So if you don't know how much is in there, then it's good to fill from that bolt that I showed you at the bottom. That way, once it starts to come out the side, you know it's full. But in this case, it's empty, so we know it needs 4 quarts. So if you look right here, so I moved this piece just so you can see better, but technically you don't have to move it because this sits here, and you can actually reach down in here and you can get that plug. You can get that plug out right here, and you can, if you have a long transmission funnel, you can fit it from here. But I removed this part so you can see easier. And also, if you and this is easy to remove, by the way, just pull that straight off of there. Just yours may have a hose clamp, mine didn't. If you loosen that, pull that straight off of here, and then pull that up off of there. It's very easy to remove. And now we can see where we fill this transmission fluid at. So Now with this removed, I can actually get a different funnel in here without having to use a transmission funnel. So if you don't have a transmission funnel, then you should remove this also. So since these bottles are small, I can just take it just like that and pour it right down that funnel. All right, so we have all 4 quarts in here, and we have our tube back on. That's how you change your transmission fluid filter, including your gasket and your fluid, on a 2015 Honda Civic. This is the 1.8.